All right, let's talk next about setting goals. Goals are incredibly important because if you don't have set goals, you won't know where you are in the path to self-leadership. Achieving goals is an important metric to keep track of along the way. First off, it feels really good when you hit your goal and it spurs you on to that next goal, and then to the next and the next one after that. If you set up your goals as stepping stones to achieve the ultimate goal, then you know you're on your path to achieve them and you're moving forward. The successful completion of goals is very self-perpetuating inasmuch as it becomes a positive reinforcement tool and thus a motivating force to keep you moving forward. Goal setting is absolutely important and maybe the most important thing you can do on your path to self-leadership. As I mentioned before, by setting small, easily achievable goals on your way to the accomplishment of a larger goal, you become increasingly motivated because the achievement of these smaller goals is in fact self-motivating. Setting goals has kept me on track. It helps me measure the success of my efforts and gives me some barometer about the progress I'm making. Just writing down the goals helps me clarify and then often narrow what the planned objective is. And the better defined the goal, the easier it is for you to understand and the clearer it becomes. Clear, narrow goals help you identify specific steps that need to be achieved in order to achieve the greater goal. Now, the way I approach this is to write down a 5 or even 10-year plan. The difference between a 5 and 10-year plan may be negligible because it's pretty much hard to guess past that 5-year horizon, and it's relatively difficult to see what your life may look like 10 years from now, unless it's something like moving to a new town or relocating, retiring, or completing a degree. So once you have set your goal, whether it be 5 or 10-year goal, start on your goals for a single year. Now, one of the goals should be at least a partial completion of the steps necessary to achieve your larger 5 or 10-year goal. Once identified, the 1-year goals can be broken down to individual steps required for the successful completion of that goal. Now, you may be able to complete some of these in a month. Some may take 6 months, and some may take you all year long. It doesn't matter. They all have individual steps necessary for their completion. Let me give you an example. A number of years ago, I started thinking about what life would look like after emergency medicine. Emergency medicine physicians are kind of time limited in as much as it's kind of a physically and mentally demanding profession. And I knew that at some point I needed a fallback plan on what I could do after really practicing emergency medicine full time, since I probably at some point couldn't do it anymore. Fortunately, I haven't reached that time yet. But a number of years ago, I started a plan for what life would look like after emergency medicine, and I decided that law would be a good idea. Now, I figured with my medical background, the addition of a law degree would allow me to represent physicians and nurses in front of their respective medical boards, for example. My goal was the successful completion of the bar exam in order to actually practice law. Now, to be able to sit for the bar, I had to graduate from an accredited law school. So, step 1, research accredited law schools. I initially thought that I could attend law school online. However, none of the online schools I researched, at least at that point, were accredited by the American Bar Association. So after learning this, I tried to find a part-time law school located in Arizona. Unfortunately, there were none. Both of the Arizona law schools required you to do at least your first year full-time. So knowing this, I had to plan ahead so my schedule would not be an undue burden on my colleagues or partners, nor myself. I had to make sure that I could schedule myself to work in the emergency department on weekends and for late afternoon and evening shifts. Now, once I was sure that my schedule would allow me to work full-time, I needed to go over the steps required to gain admission to law school. First, I need to take the LSAT, which is the law school admissions test. And I knew to do that, I needed a practice course. To do that, I had to research what were the best practice courses that were given during the times I could attend. Next, I had to get all my transcripts together and write a personal statement that somehow made a convincing argument that I would be a good admission to the law school. I also needed to make sure that my family was okay with me because of all the additional time required for school and studying. And then finally, I needed to be accepted to law school that I could afford. Now that I had all steps figured out, I could make the smaller steps to ensure I stayed on my path and completed the larger goals in a time-efficient manner. So now you get the idea. Large goals and smaller goals both have the requisite steps necessary to complete them, and these steps should be time-sensitive and not nebulous. Along the way, I check in with myself on Monday and go over what I'm trying to accomplish for that week. And then again, I check in with myself on Friday to see what I accomplished, to see if it matched up with Monday. Once I got into law school and started classes, I had a whole new set of goals and a whole new set of smaller steps that were absolutely necessary for myself to keep up with the demands of both my school life, my personal life, and my professional life. And without goal setting, I would have absolutely been sunk. Over the years, I've met a lot of amazing people, and I started to try to synthesize what it was that made them amazing. And it really was a number of characteristics that I've tried to synthesize in a number of books called the Outlier series, because all these people shared some common traits. To a person, when I asked them about how they've accomplished all they've accomplished, they all started discussing goal setting. Now, you have to be very intentional about what you're trying to accomplish if, in fact, your goal is to accomplish anything remarkable. Rarely, if ever, do positive things happen without being very intentional. This process does not necessarily have to be formal. I mean, you don't have to take all my ideas, which is to write goals down in the spreadsheet, but your goals should be written down somewhere. Now, maybe you're one of those people that can keep an internal list in their head and keep track of everything. Sadly, I'm not one of those people. I have to write things down. In fact, I type them out on an Excel spreadsheet. I am all about keeping checklists, whether I'm using them while flying or cooking or medicine or life. I live by these checklists. And interestingly enough, so did most of the outliers I interviewed. Let's go over an acronym used for goal setting. I like to use the acronym SMART. S stands for specific, M stands for measurable, A stands for attainable, R for realistic, and T for timed. So this was one of my previous goals. I wanted to run a marathon under 4 hours within the next 6 months. Now, this looks good on the surface, but let's see if it's actually a SMART goal. S, was it specific? Well, it seemed very specific to me. It was very well defined. There was no ambiguity in what I was trying to do. So it seemed like it checked off the S box. M, measurable. The successful completion of this was easily measured by simply using a stopwatch. So yes, it was measurable. A, or attainable. Now, people can certainly run a sub 4 hour marathon. And although I'm no speed them, and I think even Oprah ran a sub 4.5 hour marathon, so I thought, okay, it's attainable. R, or realistic. Well, I've never been much of a runner, and when I started running, just a half mile left me panting like I was about to have a heart attack. So I'm not sure, at least at the outset, that it was all that realistic, but I'd give it a hell of a try. And finally, T, or timed. I gave myself 6 months, so there's no ambiguity in the amount of time I allowed myself to complete it. So it was timed. Now, once you've determined that your goals fit the SMART criteria, make sure that you have the ability to break them down into individual steps. Goals are much easier to accomplish, no matter their size, when they be accomplished in little bite-sized chunks.